In early 1942, as the Battle of the Atlantic raged with relentless ferocity, MI6 undertook a daring secret mission that few in London even knew existed. While the world focused on convoys, U-boats, and the grim toll of Allied shipping losses, a small cadre of British intelligence operatives prepared to slip behind enemy lines into German-occupied France. Their goal was simple in words but perilous in execution: disrupt U-boat supply lines before the Atlantic became an insurmountable graveyard of Allied ships. The struggle began even before departure. The operatives, drawn from the Special Operations Executive and trained in sabotage, cryptography, and clandestine navigation, faced months of grueling preparation. They studied French coastal towns, memorized the patrol patterns of German forces, and rehearsed silent insertion techniques. Parachute training in the English countryside, often under driving rain and freezing winds, left many bruised and battered. One operative recalled in a diary entry from February 1942, "Every jump feels like betting your life on the precision of another man's calculations." Once deployed, the human element proved as dangerous as the enemy. Infiltrating Brittany required careful coordination with local French resistance networks, yet rumors of betrayal circulated constantly. Some informants vanished without explanation, leaving operatives in a tense limbo, unsure whether their intelligence would be acted upon or intercepted. The psychological toll was immense, navigating narrow streets under curfew, avoiding German patrols, and always questioning the loyalty of those who offered help. Each day was a balancing act between trust and survival, with the shadow of capture, or worse, looming over every decision. Amid this chaos, MI6 officers documented the mission meticulously, often in coded diary entries meant to be deciphered only after the war. One note stands out: "Trust is the rarest currency in occupied Europe." This simple line captures the essence of the challenge. The mission was not just about strategy or bombs. It was a test of human judgment, resilience, and intuition under extreme stress. Every choice could determine the survival of the team and the effectiveness of Allied naval operations across the Atlantic. Technically, the mission leveraged cutting-edge tools of the time. Radio sets were miniaturized for covert use, explosives were adapted to blend with industrial equipment, and disguises were crafted to allow operatives to pass unnoticed in German-occupied towns. Yet the real innovation was in the subtlety of information warfare, planting false intelligence, observing enemy patterns, and quietly sabotaging fuel caches or repair facilities for U-boats. Each minor success could ripple outward, shifting the balance of naval power without a single frontal confrontation. The first insertion into Brittany went off with a tense mixture of luck and precision, yet almost immediately, the operatives encountered the unexpected. Contacts that were supposed to meet them at prearranged points never appeared. Some messages returned with strange annotations or had clearly been intercepted. The team quickly realized that the enemy might already know more than they had anticipated, setting the stage for a dangerous cat-and-mouse game along the coast. As Chapter 1 closes, the mission's initial success in landing behind enemy lines is overshadowed by an unsettling realization: disappearance, betrayal, and hidden enemy knowledge are not just possibilities, they are realities. The diary entries, the intercepted messages, and the eerie absence of local contacts hint at deeper mysteries. How much of the mission is truly under Allied control? Who can be trusted, and who has already vanished into the shadows? These questions would shape the next phase of the operation, as MI6 operatives struggled to maintain the delicate balance between sabotage and survival in a world where the Atlantic itself seemed to conspire against them. By March 1942, the Atlantic was a deadly corridor for Allied shipping. Convoys carrying vital supplies from North America to Britain faced constant threat from German U-boats, particularly in the Bay of Biscay, where submarines often refueled and repaired in hidden ports along the French coast. British naval intelligence, working closely with MI6, began to suspect that the enemy had established a more sophisticated network of supply routes than previously believed, routes that extended deep into occupied France and remained invisible to conventional reconnaissance. Tracking these secretive movements was a perilous task. Coastal patrols by the Kriegsmarine were constant, and the weather added its own deadly element. February gales had given way to March storms, turning the Bay of Biscay into a churning expanse of gray waves. Allied ships, including the corvettes of the Royal Navy's 1st Escort Group, navigated this treacherous environment, while attempting to detect submarine activity with sonar and radar, technologies still in their infancy. Observers on deck endured freezing winds and spray, often for hours on end, their eyes straining for any anomaly in the endless horizon. Amid these operational hazards, the human cost became evident. Crew members were exhausted, sleep-deprived, and constantly aware that a single torpedo could end their lives. Diaries from the HMS Vetch, a Flower-class corvette patrolling the bay, described nights when men huddled in wet, freezing conditions, listening to the distant ping of sonar or the telltale hum of a U-boat propeller. One sailor wrote, "We live between waves and shadows. Every sound might be death. Every shadow might be our last." The intelligence angle introduced a new layer of complexity. Intercepted German communications, decrypted by the codebreakers at Bletchley Park, hinted at unexpected rendezvous points and supply chains far inland. MI6 operatives, already in occupied Brittany, began coordinating covert observations, reporting the movement of fuel trucks, rail shipments, and U-boat maintenance crews. These small pieces of intelligence were critical, yet their origins and accuracy were often uncertain. Even when a lead seemed solid, the fear of double agents loomed large. Strategically, the lesson was clear. The Atlantic War was no longer just a naval engagement. It was a battle of shadows. One MI6 officer noted in a February 1942 briefing, "We fight not just ships but the unseen paths they travel, and sometimes our only weapon is silence." The coordination between intelligence gathering, cryptanalysis, and frontline naval action became a delicate dance, requiring patience, precision, and an unwavering commitment to secrecy. Yet despite meticulous planning, mysteries persisted. Several convoys reported small but unusual anomalies, cargo dropped or damaged without explanation, radio transmissions that seemed out of place, and sightings of unknown small vessels skirting patrol lines. It became apparent that someone or something was operating in the gaps, exploiting the fog of war. Was it a double agent, a new German tactic, or an unforeseen flaw in Allied operations? At this point, no one had the full picture. As Chapter 2 closes, the Atlantic remains a deadly labyrinth, and MI6's presence in France is only beginning to intersect with naval operations. Convoys survive, but just barely, and the intelligence war has introduced an element of uncertainty that threatens both lives and strategy. The mystery of the missing contacts, the shadowy movements along the coast, and the unknown manipulations of the enemy set the stage for the next chapter, a daring infiltration into Brittany itself, where operatives will confront disappearance, betrayal, and the full weight of the Nazi surveillance state. By April 1942, the mission took a bold turn. A small team of MI6 operatives prepared a parachute into Brittany under the cover of night, tasked with sabotaging a suspected U-boat refueling station hidden deep in the French countryside. This operation was critical. The Allies knew that even a minor disruption in the German supply chain could save countless lives in the convoys crossing the Atlantic. Yet, as the team approached the drop zone, a sense of foreboding hung over them. Previous contacts had vanished mysteriously, leaving only uncertainty and whispers of betrayal. The descent into occupied territory was treacherous. Using handcrafted parachutes and minimal equipment to avoid detection, the operatives landed in dense forests outside the small village of Lorient, a hub for German U-boat operations. Navigating narrow roads under strict curfew, they carried explosives, radios, and forged papers, every step a gamble. German patrols were frequent, and the threat of capture was constant. Being taken alive could mean torture, exposure of the wider network, or worse. One operative later wrote, "Every shadow could be friend or foe. Every knock at a door could be the end of us." Even local civilians were unreliable. While some villagers risked their lives to guide the team, others vanished without warning, leaving cryptic clues or false information. MI6 operatives faced a dual challenge: complete their mission while constantly questioning the loyalty of allies around them. A single misstep could unravel months of planning and compromise the entire operation. The human tension was palpable: fear, exhaustion, and the moral weight of potentially endangering innocent lives coexisted with the strategic imperative of disrupting German naval logistics. The strategic value of the mission was immense, yet the team had little time to reflect. Their targets included fuel depots, covert storage facilities, and repair docks used to refit submarines for extended Atlantic patrols. Each sabotage required precise timing and technical skill. Explosives had to be planted without alerting guards, communications encrypted, and escape routes pre-planned. The operatives' training in demolition and stealth was put to its ultimate test as they moved through the shadows of industrial sites, avoiding searchlights and heavily armed sentries. Historical insight from mission reports highlights the psychological burden. The weight of knowing that a single mistake could compromise the lives of comrades, resistance members, and civilians is a burden few outside these operations can comprehend. This captures the essence of clandestine warfare. Success is measured in small, precise victories, while every failure carries monumental consequences. The invisible struggle between preparation and improvisation defined their every action. Despite meticulous planning, disaster struck when radio contact with London was abruptly lost. The operatives' messages went unanswered, leaving MI6 uncertain whether the team had been captured, compromised, or gone completely off-grid. The disappearance of one operative in particular sparked immediate concern. The intelligence he carried could have shifted the balance in the Atlantic, and now it was unknown whether it remained in Allied hands or had fallen into enemy control. As Chapter 3 concludes, the tension is at its peak. MI6 operatives are deep behind enemy lines. The full scope of the U-boat network is still murky, and trust has become a scarce commodity. The mission continues, but the stakes are higher than ever. The next chapter will reveal how unexpected intelligence breakthroughs and dangerous infiltrations begin to reshape the Atlantic campaign, even as the shadows of disappearance and betrayal loom larger than ever. By May 1942, MI6 in London began to piece together fragments of a remarkable intelligence breakthrough. Decrypted Enigma messages from Bletchley Park hinted at unusual activity within the German naval logistics network, suggesting that one of the missing operatives had somehow infiltrated a high-ranking position within the enemy's supply chain. This revelation stunned Allied command. An operative who had seemingly vanished might now hold the key to unraveling U-boat operations across the Atlantic. The struggle was far from over. German counterintelligence was relentless, and any misstep could expose the operative's true identity. Communication was limited to short, coded bursts sent through dead-drop radios and secret couriers. Operatives faced the daily fear of discovery, knowing that capture could mean not only their death but the compromise of months of carefully cultivated intelligence. One officer noted, "Sometimes the mission changes without the men knowing," underscoring the unpredictable nature of espionage behind enemy lines. Operationally, this intelligence allowed MI6 to redirect naval resources with unprecedented precision. Convoy routes could be altered, U-boat hunting patrols repositioned, and supply disruptions timed to coincide with German vulnerabilities. Yet the exact mechanism by which the operative obtained access to high-ranking information remained unclear. Whether through impersonation, forged documents, or sheer cunning, the achievement remained cloaked in mystery, even within the secretive corridors of MI6 headquarters. Historical insight from the period emphasizes the delicate balance of risk and reward in intelligence work. A memorandum from London in mid-May 1942 stated, "Our advantage is measured not in ships sunk, but in the knowledge that reaches our hands unseen and untraceable." The lesson was clear. In clandestine operations, information itself could be a weapon far more potent than conventional firepower. Despite these successes, uncertainty persisted. MI6 analysts could only speculate on the operative's survival and the extent of his influence within the German command. Conflicting reports from the field and sporadic communications kept London in a constant state of tension. Each piece of intelligence was weighed against the possibility of deception, feeding the pervasive atmosphere of mistrust and suspense that had characterized the mission from the outset. As Chapter 4 closes, the mission's impact is beginning to ripple across the Atlantic theater, yet the full story remains elusive. The presence of operatives deep within enemy networks is reshaping Allied strategy, but questions of loyalty, survival, and the true extent of the operation remain unresolved. The next chapter will explore the tangible effects of these covert maneuvers on convoy survival and the shifting tides of the Battle of the Atlantic, while leaving the shadowy operations of MI6 still partially hidden in secrecy. By June 1942, signs of MI6's shadow operations began to emerge across the Atlantic convoy routes. Allied shipping losses, which had reached catastrophic levels the previous winter, showed early indications of improvement. Convoys traveling from Halifax to Liverpool faced fewer U-boat attacks, suggesting that sabotage, intelligence leaks, and subtle disruptions of German supply lines were beginning to take effect, though exactly how remained a tightly held secret within MI6. The human cost of these operations remained stark. Convoy crews still endured long hours in the freezing North Atlantic, their nerves frayed by constant alarms and distant explosions. Sailors on ships like HMS Dianthus and HMS Sunflower recounted seeing unexplained flashes on the horizon or the sudden disappearance of German patrols, hinting that unseen forces were shaping the battlefield. Survivors' journals noted a strange mix of relief and anxiety. While attacks were fewer, the invisible hand directing the enemy's movements was unknown, creating a pervasive sense of unease. Strategically, the indirect effects of the operation were significant. Fuel depots were disrupted, U-boat repair schedules delayed, and German commanders were forced to adjust patrols based on incomplete or misleading intelligence. Analysts at Bletchley Park later observed that these covert interventions, though invisible to the public eye, marked a turning point in the Battle of the Atlantic. One officer reflected, "Small actions in shadowed places can shift the fate of oceans." Yet, despite these successes, critical mysteries endured. Some MI6 operatives remained unaccounted for, their fates unknown. Others returned with partial intelligence that hinted at broader networks and secret German strategies, but crucial details were missing. Historians today continue to debate the extent to which these hidden operations altered the course of the Atlantic War, emphasizing the profound influence of secrecy, timing, and daring courage in modern conflict. For contemporary viewers, the lesson is clear. Success in warfare is not always measured in visible victories, but in the subtle manipulation of information and logistics. Even small disruptions, when carefully timed and strategically targeted, can produce outsized effects on an opponent's capabilities. The story of MI6 in the Atlantic demonstrates that intelligence, patience, and calculated risk are as critical as firepower and numbers. As Chapter 5 concludes, the Battle of the Atlantic is beginning to tilt in favor of the Allies, yet the full impact of the MI6 operation remains veiled. The fates of missing operatives, the true scope of German counterintelligence, and the invisible manipulations behind the scenes continue to shadow the narrative. The next chapter will reveal the culmination of these covert actions, the enduring mysteries of disappeared agents, and the lessons that modern military strategy still draws from these wartime exploits. By mid-1943, the effects of MI6's clandestine operations were finally measurable, though the full picture remained murky. Convoys across the Atlantic were safer, U-boat attacks had declined, and German naval logistics were visibly strained. Yet behind this apparent success lay a tangled web of missing operatives, partial intelligence, and unanswered questions. Some agents never returned, leaving gaps in the record that would haunt historians and intelligence officers for decades. The human cost of the mission was staggering. Those who survived spoke of long nights hiding in barns, forests, and abandoned factories, always listening for the approach of German patrols. Supplies were scarce, trust was fragile, and the psychological toll was immense. One operative wrote in a secret report, "We operate in silence, in shadows, and yet every small success carries the weight of many lives. We vanish to preserve the greater whole." These words capture the delicate balance between survival, secrecy, and strategic impact that define the operation. Operationally, MI6 quietly documented the successes and failures, noting how subtle sabotage, intelligence leaks, and the occasional audacious infiltration had collectively shifted the course of the Atlantic War. U-boat fuel depots had been disrupted, repair schedules delayed, and German commanders forced into defensive postures that stretched their resources thin. The invisible hand of MI6 had, in effect, turned the tide without a single open confrontation, illustrating the decisive power of covert action. Yet even as the Allies gained the upper hand, mysteries lingered. Which operatives survived? Which intelligence had truly reached London, and which had fallen into enemy hands? The disappearance of key agents left permanent gaps in the historical record, reinforcing the notion that in espionage, uncertainty is an inseparable companion to success. Analysts would later note that the operation's indirect effects, confusing German logistics, protecting convoys, and enabling tactical flexibility, were as important as any battlefield victory. For modern observers, the story offers enduring lessons. Information is as potent a weapon as any ship or bomb, and carefully executed covert operations can influence the outcome of wars in ways unseen by the public eye. The courage, patience, and ingenuity of those who operate in secrecy remind us that the most decisive battles are often fought in the shadows, far from headlines or medals. As Chapter 6 closes, the Atlantic War had been fundamentally altered, yet the full story of MI6's secret mission remains only partially known. Disappeared operatives, incomplete intelligence, and the quiet manipulations behind the Allied victory leave a lingering sense of mystery. The operation's true scope may never be fully revealed, but its legacy endures as a testament to courage, cunning, and the hidden strategies that shaped the course of World War II.